All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm just going to stall for a moment to let everyone come into the room. This is a rather large session for us, about 300 people registered, so I want to give everyone some time to connect. But I'm glad that you're all here to learn a little bit more about scholarship and funding opportunities here at Syracuse. It should be an informative session, and I hope to be able to spend some time on Q&A with you if you're here today. So while we get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Rachel Skipper. I'm the Associate Director of Undergraduate and Graduate Recruitment in the College of Arts and Sciences and the Maxwell School, which means a big part of my job is to talk to people through and support them through the admissions process. And I know that affordability, funding, and scholarships are all a really important part of that process for a lot of you. So I'm glad that you're here to hopefully get a lot of questions answered and get some valuable information today. I'll let you know that if you have questions throughout the session, the chat is closed. And that's not because I don't want to hear from you. It's because it's easier for us to manage your questions using the Q&A feature. So the Q&A is open. If you go to more in your meeting controls, you'll see the Q&A icon. It's a text box looking icon with a question mark in it. My colleague Chris is here helping answer questions. So if you get an answer from Chris, that is one of us. He is helping me by helping manage questions during today's session. So type in your questions in the Q&A whenever they come to mind, and Chris will be here in the background helping respond to your questions. So with that, I want to launch with just some statistics about scholarship and funding opportunities here at Syracuse in general. So these numbers are Syracuse numbers, not just arts and sciences. But at Syracuse, over 80% of our students receive some form of financial support. Last year, that was a total of almost $500 million in financial assistance granted to our students. So I hope that's encouraging for those of you who are applying, knowing that you'll need financial aid, scholarships, or both. We do support students by offering quite a bit of aid. Lastly, we want to point out that $376 million of that total was Syracuse dollars. So when you're applying for financial assistance of any kind, a lot of that money is going to be Syracuse University dollars that are supporting you. And I want to review kind of where that aid comes from and who you should ask. I would say one of the most common points of confusion and misconception during the process of applying for aid is, who do I ask about this question, right? Am I going to the right place? Am I sending an email to the right office? So I want to get this right off of our plates at the beginning. There are two general forms of financial assistance, and I like to think about them as two different categories because of the way that they are awarded. So first, the Office of Financial Aid evaluates applicants based on need. So your families or whoever is supporting you's financial situation. This decision is based on two forms, the FAFSA and the CSS profile. They are required for you to be considered for this kind of aid. Importantly, and the reason I bring it up early and I'm going to move on, is that this form of aid is not really part of the admissions process. It is instead part of the financial aid process and overseen by the Office of Financial Aid. So if you have questions about how does my family's income determine what kind of aid we'll receive, how do financial changes in my family determine what kind of aid we'll receive, what kind of aid am I going to receive based on that income, etc., those are questions for the Office of Financial Aid. The Office of Admissions really has nothing to do with this process. It's kind of a separate process and a separate office with different staff. So if you're interested in being considered for financial aid, right, that's based on need, you would apply by submitting the FAFSA and the CSS profile. I'll leave in the chat the two links that are viewable using these QR codes, so you can have them in both places. So if you're wanting to be considered based on your family's income, and you should be, right? Everyone should do this to see what kind of aid you would be eligible for. FAFSA, CSS, the link to that website is in the chat now. The second form of aid, and the one that we'll be talking about today, is the Office of Admissions and our evaluation of students based on academic merit. So we offer, instead of financial aid, scholarships. And those scholarship decisions are made based on your academic merit. And we'll talk a lot today about what that means. But in terms of scholarships, you are going to be going through the Office of Admissions. You are going to be applying through Syracuse. And based on that application is how we will consider you for these forms of aid. And that's just going to be the Common App or the Coalition App. So this is something you're considered for automatically, whereas the financial aid is going to be based on a separate application. So again, two forms of assistance. One is based on income. That is two forms you need to fill out. That is through the Office of Financial Aid. Second form, what we're talking about today and how we'll focus our time today. Scholarships based on your academic achievements, and you're considered for these based on the common application. So throughout the session, if you have questions about like who offers this kind of aid, is this something we're going to talk about today? Where can I ask this specific question? Leave those in the Q&A. Chris is very skilled in this entire process and can tell you who you need to ask or answer your questions if it is an admissions-based question. So today's session is all admissions and all scholarships focused. So on that note, I want to talk to you about one of the most common questions I probably get in all of the admissions process, which is what do I need to do to be competitive for admission? What do I need to do to be competitive for scholarships, and am I eligible? So first, there is, again, no application required for financial scholarships. If you're interested in being considered based on your academic achievements for a university scholarship, you just apply to Syracuse. You can use the Coalition app, you can use the Common app, and we will evaluate you. Some scholarships will require additional information, right? Maybe a scholarship essay or a short application. If that's the case, you'd find out after you've already applied. So if we see that we think you'll be eligible, right, for a competitive scholarship, and I'll mention some of what these are later, and we need more information from you, we'll tell you. So at that point, you'll know that, via email, hey, we want to consider you. We want you to fill out this additional application, usually short, not too much to it. But just to be considered for scholarships as a whole, all you need to do is apply. And if we need more from you, we'll tell you. Well, I get this question a lot, including earlier today. Are test scores required for scholarships? And the answer is no. So Syracuse is test optional. That means that if you have a strong score, you should submit it, right? It's a good indication of academic merit. It's a good indication of academic success. We want to see those scores if they're strong. If you did not take the test, or if you are not proud of your scores, don't submit scores, and that's completely fine. It doesn't hurt you in the application process. It's just another way for us to see that you are academically strong, and you can choose to submit it if you think it's a good indication of your academic ability. So Syracuse is test optional. That goes for the scholarship process too. Submitting versus not submitting scores is not going to affect your admissions decision or scholarship decision. In addition, I get questions from international students quite a bit about whether they're eligible for these types of aid. So for the need-based financial aid that is based on family income, international students are not eligible. That's because that uses federal funds that are for US citizens. For international students, though, who have strong academic records, we do consider international students for scholarships. So yes, you can be eligible for financial assistance, and it would be through scholarships based on your academic merit. It would not be based on your family's finances. If we kind of go deeper into this, thinking about, am I eligible? What scholarships would I be eligible for? I think it's important to talk about what we look for in terms of scholarship decisions. So this is another really common question that I get. Am I eligible for a scholarship, and what should I do, right, to make sure the admissions committee sees that I'm a good candidate for these scholarships? Again, I'll leave a couple links in the chat for you that you can consider while we're kind of having this part of the conversation. But scholarship recipients demonstrate some important characteristics, and this is not a secret, right? It's shouldn't be too elusive to you what admissions committees in general are looking for. But at Syracuse specifically, we have a whole website that is just focused on what we look for, right? The things that you should be doing to become competitive and what Syracuse will want to see from you on your application. Boiled down, right, as someone who considers students for scholarships, these are the 4 categories that I share with students that I find most important, to make it short. If you want more information, the link to that page is in the chat now. But the first, strong academic performance in a rigorous curriculum. And this is a 2-piece, right? Strong performance, rigorous curriculum. The rigor of your curriculum is actually rated by our admissions office. So we'll look at how difficult the courses you are taking in the context of your school. So it's good that you have a strong GPA. That's something that we want to see. It's good that your letter grades are up there. But we also want to see that you're taking challenging courses. So the strong academic performance in a rigorous curriculum, both important. Next, impressive accomplishments outside the classroom. You can show us how well you're doing in class using your transcript. We also want to see how impressive you are outside the classroom, for example, in your community, in volunteer work, in extra pursuits that you're doing outside of class. That could be music, that could be art, that could be volunteering, that could be community organization building. That could be any number of things, right? What are your skills? What are you good at? What is impressive about you? And that doesn't have to be related to your courses. Often this is on the activity sheet, right? Things that you're sharing with us that you're doing outside of class. That could be both at your school or at your community. Often it is a combination of both. Next, leadership skills at school, your communities, both. So in addition to just what are you good at, what have you spent your time doing? We also want to know for scholarships decisions, certainly, are you a leader in those organizations? What kind of change are you inciting in your community? How are you pushing other students around you to do better? What differences are you making in the people's lives around you for the better? So that is a trait we want to see from our students here at Syracuse, right? We want to see that you really make strong contributions to our community of students, that you're a positive influence on our student community, and that you push the students around you to also do well and to also be successful and strong in the things that they enjoy doing. So we look for evidence that you've done that before college, right? So excellent leadership skills is something we were looking for. And often when we want to dig deeper into what do we mean by leadership, it's how are you influential? What changes are you making for the better for the people around you? And lastly, demonstrated interest in attending Syracuse. This term demonstrated interest is something you'll hear not just from Syracuse, but from other schools you're applying to. And it's basically, did you show us that you're interested in our university, right? Are you likely to actually enroll here? Do you think you're a good fit? Beyond, do we think you're a good fit? Demonstrated interest is just a measure of how much interest you've shown in a school. And again, not a Syracuse specific thing. Many schools use this as a form of evaluation, Syracuse included. And again, more important for scholarships themselves than simply for admission, we're looking at demonstrated interest. How can you show demonstrated interest? You're already doing that, right? You're coming to an information session to learn more. I will offer a host of different information sessions. So if you'd like to attend more than one Zoom session like this, you can do that. I'll leave the link to the chat now. And you can also find that at the end of the session. But if you want to attend a few virtual sessions with us, that's a great way to show that you're interested in Syracuse. Another way to show that you're interested is to demonstrate that in the Why Syracuse essay. That's our supplemental question on the Syracuse portion of the Common App or Coalition app, where you talk about how you think you're a good fit for Syracuse. You can also do this by visiting campus. That's not an option for everyone, right? It's a lot easier for some people to get to our campus than others based on where they are and what their schedules look like. But visiting our campus is another way to show you're interested. So keep those things in mind as you're going through the next couple of weeks of admissions. There's many opportunities that you'll have to show us that you're interested in addition to when you apply. And that demonstrated interest can make an impact when we consider students for scholarships. So before I go into kind of individual scholarships that we offer, and we'll start with the Coronat scholarship, I want to check on the Q&A. First, I see a question. Does Syracuse offer virtual tours of campus? Yes, we do. And Chris, if you wouldn't mind popping that into the chat, it looks like someone might be interested in doing a virtual tour. It looks like Chris has also answered a few of your other questions. So that's great. It's good to see that people aren't waiting on too many answers. So keep leaving your questions in Q&A. Chris and I will keep responding, and keep an eye on the chat for the virtual tour option. And viewing that virtual tour does count as demonstrated interest. We can see who's been doing the tour. So fantastic question, and thanks for bringing it up now. So again, I wanted to spend a bit of time today talking about independent scholarships, like individual scholarships that Syracuse offers. Again, this is an arts and sciences and Maxwell session, so I'm going to focus on scholarships that arts and sciences and Maxwell offers, and importantly, scholarships that I personally review for, because I think I can be of most help talking about these scholarships. So the two that I want to talk about first are the Coronat scholarship and the leadership scholarship. Again, link in the chat if you want to read more about these scholarships separately from today's session. But first up is the Coronat scholarship. And I bring this up first because, for better or for worse, it is the most competitive scholarship that Syracuse offers. It's only offered to students who apply to arts and sciences or to Maxwell within the university. It is the most selective scholarship that we offer, and it's also the most highly funded scholarship. So it offers the most benefits and it offers the most money. I give you this kind of graph showing the triangle kind of weeding down the number of students who apply for this scholarship, because I want to drive home the fact that very few students are selected, right? This is a very competitive scholarship, and I don't want any of you who are not selected for this to feel let down by that. Again, it's only a small cohort of students that receive this scholarship, but it is an impressive scholarship and one that I want you to be aware of. Of the 18,000 plus applications that we receive for arts and sciences in Maxwell, we invite approximately 200 applicants, the ones that we feel are the strongest and most competitive for the scholarship, to apply for this scholarship. So this is one that I mentioned, right? Just apply to Syracuse. If we need more information from you, we will ask. This scholarship works that way. About 200 students will be asked to submit essays as their application for the scholarship. Of note, you can use essays from other sources. So this is not new essays you have to write. You can use things that you've written before to submit. 40 will be interviewed by our Coronat committee, which is admissions, also current students who are Coronat scholars already on campus, and faculty who teach Coronat scholars on campus. And then we offer the scholarship to 30 of those people. So of 18,000 plus people, 30 offered the scholarship. Very competitive, but it's a fantastic scholarship. And again, one that I want you all to be aware of. More information about the scholarship is in the chat. For Coronat scholars, who again are our most competitive applicants to arts and sciences in Maxwell, they receive full tuition, also funding for a study abroad trip, which is great. It could be as short as a week or a semester long trip even, and we will cover the funding for that. Funding for approved study, research, or volunteer work. So if you're looking for money to do a research project or to travel to present your research, for example, the scholarship includes that funding. It also includes other benefits that are not necessarily financial, like mentorship, a place in the honors program on campus, apparel for Coronat scholars, and also I think maybe one of the most appealing parts of the scholarship, besides the funding, is the bonding in the Coronat scholar community. So a group of students with strong academic abilities who are interested in kind of furthering their academics through the scholarship program. That's another really strong element to the scholarship. Leadership scholars, again, another scholarship that is offered by Arts and Sciences in Maxwell specifically, and that I review students for, so I can kind of share some information about what we're looking for here. A little bit less competitive than the Coronat scholarship. You can see it on the screen now, about 440 offers from the 18,000 or so students that apply to us. This is very similar in terms of what we're looking for to the Coronat scholarship, right? It's just kind of the top tier of students based on those qualifications that I've already shared with you, the what we look for kind of option. If you're wanting to know how you can be competitive for either of these scholarships, I would say look no further than that website, right? It's the top students in those categories. But again, leadership scholars, slightly less competitive because we can offer additional scholarships, so 50% tuition scholarship instead of full tuition. This does not require an extra application. And again, that leadership ability, showing how you've been a positive influence, is likely the most important factor we're looking for beyond just academics for this scholarship. Okay, just checking again, back to the Q&A. I see a good question that I can just answer live really quickly. Does applying ED versus RD affect scholarship consideration? That's a great question. If you apply ED, you will still be considered for scholarships just like an RD student would. I will say that fewer scholarships are available in the ED cohort because fewer students apply early decision. But you can apply ED or RD and still be considered for scholarships, certainly. Again, let us know if you have more questions, and Chris will keep answering them in the Q&A. Like I said, the Leadership Scholarship is a slightly less competitive than Coronat and offers a half tuition scholarship, 50%, and it will change with the tuition cost that year. So it's not a dollar amount, it's a percentage amount. They also receive funding for research pursuits. For example, like I said, for Coronat, if you're wanting to travel to present research, or if you need money to run a research project, then you can have that. Same goes for leadership scholars. There's a built-in stipend specifically for academic work. Like the Coronat Scholars, there's also kind of a peer community among leadership scholars, and these people are invited to apply to the honors program and are often competitive to be admitted to the honors program. And of course, special apparel for leadership scholars similar to Coronat. So leadership is another good scholarship, one to keep an eye out for. And again, nothing extra you need to do to apply. You just apply to Syracuse, and if we need more information from you, we would let you know. But for leadership, there isn't a required next step. Likely you'll just be selected for leadership based on your application to Syracuse alone. Two more scholarships I want to mention to you. I'll offer one example of a scholarship for STEM students and one example of a scholarship for Maxwell students. Shifting gears now, we're talking about scholarships that are offered specifically to admitted students. So either of these, you would be notified after you're admitted that you can or should apply. So the two scholarships that I've already shared with you, you're going to find out that you're selected for those scholarships as part of your admissions offer. These next two I'm going to be talking about, you'll find out after you've been admitted that you might be a good candidate and we could add this scholarship on for you. So the first is the Sustain Scholarship, and this is for STEM students. I have the acronym at the top, Strategic Undergraduate STEM Talent Acceleration Initiative. Essentially, it's a scholarship that builds a little bit of more community and support around students in STEM programs. This program specifically focuses on underrepresented students and low income and first gen students. So something to think about. If that is you, then you're also interested in STEM, this may be a good scholarship to consider. They offer $5,000 for the first 2 years of college each year. They continue throughout your 4 years with mentorship offerings, immersive research experiences, one-on-one mentoring and coaching, placement in a STEM-focused residence hall, and also kind of peer mentorship throughout the program. So kind of like the other two scholarships, it's not just funding, it's also community support. And so STEM is a good option if you're interested in STEM, Sustain is a good option if you're interested in STEM, and one that I would keep on your radar. They're always welcoming more students to apply each year. So I try to kind of advocate for this program a little bit at this early stage. If you have questions, you can use the contact information on the slide now to ask. I also, again, shared a link to the program site and contact information is available there. You would be, again, invited to apply to this if we think you would be a good fit after you are admitted to Syracuse. But if you want to just apply on your own without being invited, that's an option as well. So the link that you can use to learn more is, again, in the chat. Next up, again, kind of similar format. If you're admitted, and this time if you're interested in Maxwell as opposed to STEM, we would invite you to apply for the Maxwell Scholarship. The Maxwell Citizenship Scholarship is a program for students who have sort of already been engaged in their communities and doing projects with strong community impact and influence prior to college. So it's a way to recognize those students that are doing the kind of work that the Maxwell School really values even before they're in college. And they are kind of recognized with a $15,000 scholarship that's renewable for 4 years. Again, if you are admitted, you can apply for the Maxwell School Scholarship. So for questions about this one, I would recommend just contacting us in the Office of Admissions, again, after you are admitted to Syracuse. So in addition to the scholarships that you can be awarded when you apply and when you're admitted, you can also be offered more scholarships later after you're admitted, but before you decide to enroll. So see, these two scholarships are, again, arts and sciences and Maxwell focused, and two that should be on your radar if you are really thinking about pushing hard on these kind of scholarship achievements and looking for ways to fund your education. Now, I talked about 4 scholarships, right? Coronat in leadership that you can be awarded at the time of admission, and also Sustain in Maxwell that you can be awarded after you're admitted. That is a very short list compared to the full list of all the scholarships that Syracuse as a university will offer you. And I really want to make that clear. I'm talking today about scholarships that I know the process for because they are awarded by Arts and Sciences in Maxwell, and I work in Arts and Sciences in Maxwell. Syracuse University as a whole also offers many other scholarships to many more students who apply. So if you're interested in looking at all of the scholarships Syracuse offers. Now that you kind of understand what we are in general looking for, there's a link in the chat. You can also use the QR code on the screen to go to our general scholarships page. And there you'll find a very long list of all the other programs that you might be competitive for. But again, and I like this benefit of applying to Syracuse, there's nothing extra you need to do. These are the scholarships that we will automatically consider you for if you apply. And so all you need to do is the Common App or the Coalition app, and then our admissions committee will review you for those scholarships. And we know which students we're looking for these different scholarships. And there's a little bit more information about that online too, like what kind of students are considered for what kinds of scholarships. So if you want more information about other scholarships you could apply for, use the link in the chat or visit the QR code on your screen. All right, next up, I want to talk to you a bit about funding opportunities after enrollment. So I know that this can be a little bit of a tricky topic because I know that you would like to know before you enroll, right, what your estimated cost of attendance is going to be, what kind of scholarships, grants, aid, et cetera, you've been given, and you will, to a large extent, know what kinds of money are going to contribute to your cost of attendance at Syracuse. But if you're a student who already knows that regardless of that number, you'd still like to be making money while in college, and you'd still like to be earning dollars toward the cost of your enrollment, there are more funding opportunities that our current students who are on campus seek out and are successful in kind of earning. So the first, I'll just mention a few different scholarships, and unfortunately, there are just so many of these kinds of options that I can't really do a great job on one slide sharing with you every single one. Certainly email me if you have questions, if you're having a hard time finding these scholarships that I mentioned online, but there's a lot more information online about all of these. A few that stand out to me that I want to mention today are the Remembrance Scholarship. That is only, again, 35 students, so these are very strong academically on campus, and they're among the top students at Syracuse who apply for this scholarship, and they kind of represent the individuals who were lost in the Pan Am 103 bombing in 1988. So if you're looking for a scholarship that really just awards academic excellence and is really kind of close to our hearts as a community at Syracuse, the Remembrance Scholarship is a good one to consider. I would also recommend just Googling the Remembrance Scholarship and Remembrance Scholars at Syracuse to learn more about this and kind of see kind of the tradition behind this scholarship. I think it might be interesting for you as you learn about the university. And it's a good example, you know, it puts forward some really strong examples of Syracuse students who are really successful here. The Fansdale Grant, again, aid for students from middle income backgrounds who exemplify academic success and community leadership. This is sort of similar to the kind of scholarship consideration that I was telling you about before, but now on campus, right? So we're looking for academic success, rigorous classes, good performance, and community leadership, which we talked about already. So if you continue those things into college, this is another scholarship that you might be kind of a good candidate for. And again, this is for middle income backgrounds, but there are many scholarships on campus that do not look at that do not look at financial income or financial background. So this is one example for a specific community on our campus, but there are others that are for any student on campus. And then lastly, again, this would be an insane list to kind of put on one slide, but other academically focused opportunities. This category is, I'm thinking, scholarships that are connected to a certain academic interest, right? So for example, the Peter Friend Prize in the Department of Philosophy. That is the specific department's scholarship that they offer to students in that department. So the scholarship opportunities and the ways that students earn funding during college do in some cases get pretty specific. The first two options on this slide, including the Remembrance Scholarship, are broad. They are not selective based on a student's academic interest. That being said, these other academically focused opportunities at the bottom of the slide are for specifically humanities students, specifically philosophy students, specifically chemistry students, whatever the case may be. So if you're interested in learning more about any of these other scholarships, you can follow the most recent link I left in the chat. Some of these are listed there. Other times I would recommend going to the department's website. So if you're interested in, for example, English, go to the English and Textual Studies Department website and see what scholarships are awarded to undergrads. Many departments will list which scholarships they offer their students right on their websites, and that's a useful place to go. Again, if you're having trouble finding that, let me know. I'm aware of many of these scholarships, even though I don't consider students for them. This is often evaluated by our faculty on campus. But I can help you find scholarships that might be a good fit for you after you enroll. So hopefully this is also encouraging as another way that you can continue to excel academically in college and be rewarded, right, using scholarship funds. I will also mention that in addition to emailing me now, which you're welcome to do, once you're on campus, there are staff whose full-time job is to support you in identifying scholarships, applying for them, and earning them. The two most important offices that come to mind are the SOURCE, which is the Syracuse Office of Undergraduate Research and Creative Engagement, and the CFSA, Center for Fellowship Scholarship Advising. We love our acronyms, as we are learning today. But the SOURCE on campus is really focused on not just science-based projects, but also creative work. They offer grants for summer projects. So if you want to stay on campus or stay around Syracuse in the summer and do that kind of work, they can offer you grants to do that. They also will help you apply for other scholarships. So the SOURCE offers its own scholarships, but they'll also support you in applying for scholarships elsewhere. So they have faculty and staff on campus who are really influential in mentoring our students through that process. CFSA, very similar. So their staff are committed to helping students not only apply for and get awarded scholarships, but also helping students navigate just what scholarships are out there, right? What scholarships might I be a good fit for at Syracuse, nationally, or at the international level. They have on their website a great list of scholarships that they recommend our students look into and that they can help our students apply for. So if you're wanting to look at that now, I would welcome you to do that. I'll leave a link in the chat to both the SOURCE office and the CFSA office. All right, up next, I want to mention briefly internship opportunities. This is probably not new information to any of you, but if you're interested in applying for internships, and you likely will be once you're on our campus, many of our students for their internships are paid at an hourly rate. Internships are generally something that we recommend students do just because it's good professional development. It helps them understand their own career trajectory better. It helps them understand what they're looking for out of a future career, and it makes them more hireable after they graduate. But of course, another good benefit of doing an internship is that you can get paid to do that work. So you can be paid hourly on our campus for a lot of different jobs and student internships. We hire interns in our office, in the Office of Admissions, many different offices and research groups around campus hire students at an hourly rate. Syracuse will also allocate for funding if you want to do an internship and you need financial assistance to do so. So for example, let's say that you want to do an internship in the city of Syracuse, and that means you need to stay on campus and that costs money, right? Or you need to get an apartment in a different city to do work there as an internship, and you want to do this because it's good for you academically and it's good for your career outcomes. Syracuse can offer funding to support you during that time, in addition to the funding that you might be making as part of that internship itself. So I will leave a link to that opportunity in the chat. Again, if you want to learn more about this off the call, you're welcome to do that. So keep in mind that Syracuse is really going to support you in applying for and securing internships. Often those internships will be paid, and to offset your cost associated with doing an internship, we can find ways to kind of support you financially as you do that work, which is nice. All right, next up, I want to talk about other ways to kind of earn money as a student on campus, and that is with undergraduate research. This comes as a surprise to a lot of people, so I like to mention this here. Again, like internships, many students are doing undergraduate research just for the career benefit, right? Just to help them navigate their career options, build some skills, and become more hireable. That alone is a good compensation, I think, for that kind of work. But of course, getting paid is helpful, right? So for internship and research, you can get paid on the hourly basis to do undergraduate research. An example that I really love to point to is in the Department of Biology, where they always are seeking students to stay on campus over the summer and do research, and they pay those students an hourly rate just like any other job, but for undergraduate research. And often they're having a hard time finding enough students who want to do this. So they're always coming to me asking, do I know of any students who are staying in the area? And they want me to really promote this option because they have more slots than are being filled for this option. Other departments do similar things, right? Either paying students on an hourly rate to do research during the academic year or to stay on campus over the summer and help continue their research projects. And again, kind of like listed here, there are other benefits to doing research as well that I think are just as important, but payment doesn't hurt either in making an hourly income doing something like research or an internship is a really nice option for our students. So at this point, I want to see what your questions are. I don't plan to share any additional slides or information, but I certainly have more information I can share if you have questions or if you need clarification on anything that we shared thus far. Of course, we can end the session early if you don't have additional questions. I'm more than happy to jump off the call, but I think that time would be better spent on Zoom and I can kind of answer questions here. So let me know in the chat if you have any additional questions. I see that Chris has been busy typing away, answering many of your questions, so thanks for asking. While I wait for some additional questions to come in, I just want to point out on the screen that I am listing here contact information that you can and should use in the future. If you want to contact the Office of Financial Aid, again, for need-based questions about your family's income, whether you're eligible for aid, federal funds, grants that come from Syracuse or the federal government based on your family's income. That is a question for the Office of Financial Aid. They don't as much use like a single email address. They have an email form on their website, which is why I point you to a website here. financialaid.syr.edu is where you want to go to ask the financial aid office questions. And then again, the second form of aid and the one that today's session focused on those are administered by my team in Arts and Sciences in Maxwell, also by the Central University Office of Admissions. So visit as.syr.edu is my office's email address, and you can contact us if you have questions. And then the Central Office of Admissions is orange@syr.edu. So you can email either of those offices if you have questions about the scholarships we offer, and your message will be filtered to the right person to answer questions about that scholarship. I see a question in the chat or in the Q&A, sorry. If I applied to Syracuse for ED, will this be affected by FAFSA not being open until December? No. You would apply now if you want to be considered for ED. You can go ahead and submit that application. And then in December, you can also apply for financial aid through the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Don't forget both FAFSA and CSS are both required for Syracuse. If you are, I again have been getting this question a lot lately too, just because of the time of year. If you're interested in applying ED, but you're worried about scholarships and financial aid, you likely should not apply ED. The ED application is for students who know they're coming to Syracuse if they're admitted, end of sentence, right? Regardless of financial aid, you're kind of going to submit a binding contract to attend Syracuse. And it's more appropriate for students to do that if they're not concerned or not in serious need of additional financial aid, because we can't guarantee you that you'll have that financial aid package on time to make that decision, especially with the FAFSA not really being under our control. It's a government form. So if you are wanting to express a strong interest in Syracuse, but you can't commit without knowing what your financial aid situation is going to be, then you should likely apply for a regular decision or RD and use demonstrated interest, like we talked about, to show that you are interested in enrolling, right? For example, by emailing and saying, hey, I would have applied ED if I could have, but I was, worried to do that based on financials. You can email me that and I can add that note to your application. You can attend virtual sessions. You can visit campus. You can do the things that we've talked about already. So that's what I would recommend in that situation. Perfect in timing the question, where and how is demonstrated interest tracked? All kinds of ways. We keep track of any student who is on our campus, right, coming to visit us for an admissions tour, the virtual tour is something you have to log in to do, so we can track your virtual tour activity that way, keeping track of who did the tour or didn't. When you clicked that link from the email to get into today's session, that logged you in as someone who attended my virtual session today. That will happen at my other virtual sessions as well. So anytime that you're attending a virtual session with us, that kind of access, that click that you do to sign into the session marks you as attended for a virtual event. So you can come to any of my virtual sessions that would track your interest. And then we in the Office of Admissions can also keep track of this. So if, for example, I'm emailing a student back and forth and they're explaining the ED thing to me, right? Syracuse is my top choice. I want to apply, but I don't want to apply ED because of the binding contract and financials. I can add a note to that person's application and say, I've been working with the student and they're really interested, and the admissions committee can see that. So we use a bunch of different ways to track students' interest, and those are a few of the most common ones. Okay, I see anonymous. We were told specifically by someone from financial aid when we visited this summer that we could still do ED if we need financial aid. Commitment would not be binding if we did not get financial aid. Can you clarify? Yes, the commitment is a binding commitment. If someone in the Office of Admissions decides that they will let you out of that contract, they are of course at liberty to kind of dissolve that contract and let you out of the binding commitment, but it is still a binding commitment. It's not something I would recommend doing. It's not something that those of us in the Office of Admissions ever recommend doing. If you contact my colleagues in the Office of Admission or my college in the Arts and Sciences admissions team, we will tell you, you're signing a binding contract and no one has to let you out of that contract, unfortunately. Of course, there have been times when a student just simply cannot enroll, right? And they make the case to central admissions that they need to get out of that contract. And sometimes that request would be granted, just like with any contract. That's not guaranteed. Another thing to keep in mind too, and a reason that I kind of word this strongly and encourage people to think about this, is the enrollment deposit. When you accept your offer of admission and you sign that binding contract and you make your deposit, and then you decide later that you don't want to attend, again, you already made a deposit at the university that does not have to be refunded. Again, sometimes people try to help students and they will refund those deposits, but the university is not required to do that, and it's not a guarantee that we can refund money that you've paid to enroll. So that's another kind of risk of trying to withdraw after doing these kinds of commitments. So just something I like to mention. Of course, there's always exceptions. Yes, sometimes students have gotten out of any different forms of binding contracts or agreements, but it's not something I encourage students to do. I will leave my email address in the chat and also on the screen. I see someone's question in the Q&A now. So feel free to email me if you have questions after today's session as well. I saw a question really quickly about a recording, if you're wondering. Yes, I should be able to post a recording of today's session. We have a scholarships website that I can leave in the chat now, and a recording from a couple of years ago is on that site, and I plan to replace that recording with the one from today. So I'll leave a link in the chat and you can check back there probably tomorrow or the next day for a recording of this session. Okay. Haley, I see your question. When we schedule personal interviews, how are those reviewed and included in our applications once our application is reviewed? I did an interview over the summer and applied to ED1, so I'm just curious. Great question. And I'm glad that you mentioned personal interviews. I kind of skimmed over that earlier and left a link in the chat that I should have talked more about. So thank you for asking. When you do a personal interview, and if you want to do that, I'll leave the link in the chat for those who may have lost it in the shuffle. If you want to do a personal interview with Syracuse, it's just kind of like test scores, not a required thing, but a thing you can do if you think it demonstrates your strength, right? So if you interview well, if you have good interpersonal skills, if you have questions, you'd like to interact with an admissions person in this way, I would recommend a personal interview. The link that you can use to sign up is in the chat. The question about like, how is that recorded is one that I get sometimes. So great question. Thanks for letting me know you're kind of worried about that maybe. During the interview, we just take some notes about you, your academic interests, the things that you said about yourself that we think make you a good fit for the university. A little bit of a summary of like the questions we asked you and the things that you talked about. And then we upload a summary with those notes about your interview to your application file. So if I interview a student and I know that they have a strong interest in this research group on campus and that they are interested in this student organization and that they're taking AP history this year and that matches well to the major, those are the kinds of things that I would make in my notes. And then those notes would be uploaded to the student's application. And then when the student's file is reviewed, that's just one extra document similar to test scores or to a transcript or to letters of recommendation that's available to the admissions committee. In addition, when we're looking at students' demonstrated interest, and we're wondering like how serious is the student in enrolling at Syracuse, the admissions interview is one thing that we're going to look at to see, you know, how connected are they to us? How much work did they do to kind of learn about the university and share information about themselves? So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Isabella, nice question. Is doing Syracuse University's Project Advance with your high school another good way of showing demonstrated interest? Absolutely. Very popular thing for students to do that are local to us and can. SUPA courses we look at, and of course, that's a good way to show that you're interested in attending. Michelle, I see your question, and unfortunately, I don't know the answer. Do you review submitted glimpse videos and include them in the application file? I'm not sure what those are. So send me that question via email. Again, my email is in the chat, and I can do a little more research and let you know, because I'm not familiar with glimpse, but I'm sure I could find out within a few minutes if you are looking for an answer. So I see a question now about the CSS profile. That's really one that would be better answered by the Office of Financial Aid. Again, the Office of Financial Aid looks at all income-based questions. The Central Office of Admissions and my admissions team in Arts and Sciences in Maxwell does not. So if you have questions about FAFSA, CSS profile, family income, changes to family income or family status and how that affects financial aid, all of that kind of stuff, you should be asking the Office of Financial Aid. Obviously your question, how do you apply to internships? Do I wait till I'm accepted before I apply? Interesting question. You don't have to wait until you're accepted to Syracuse to apply. Our internship application process is kind of a general internship option, right? So for example, if a student comes to Syracuse and wants to do an internship in finance, they might go on LinkedIn to look for internship opportunities. They might go to Indeed, Glassdoor to look for job titles, internship openings. They would use Syracuse's website for Handshake as well. It's a site that employers use to post opportunities specific to Syracuse students. They do all that under the mentorship of a mentor on campus. So if we see that student in the advising office and they say, I want this finance internship, a person might sit down with them and go through internship opportunities, right? They would then help them know, okay, this company might be looking for this kind of experience. That company might be looking for something else. Let's develop a resume that focuses on those things differently. If they get multiple offers, they'll walk them through which offer do we think is better, you know, which is going to be the best, most fitting for you. What option is going to make you more competitive for the job you want to do one day. So our internship process is just the normal process that anyone would do applying for internships, but on campus, you're going to get more support. You'll have someone sitting one-on-one with you walking through those steps. So if that's something you want to start doing on your own before you're admitted or before you enroll or before you kind of move to campus next fall, go for it. We would never hold you back from doing that. Often students are doing that and listing that as activities that they're doing on their application, and that's great. But if you want to wait until you're on campus and you have our resources and you have our guidance, that would certainly be the most common thing to do, and you can do that as well. Hannah, could I be considered for more than one scholarship? Typically, no. Syracuse tends to choose the scholarship that they think is going to be the best fit for you and offer you only that one. That being said, if you apply for a scholarship after you're awarded those scholarships at admission, then you can be awarded more. So the sustained scholarship, the Maxwell scholarship, both work this way. You're admitted, you get the Syracuse scholarship that we awarded you when you're admitted, and then you apply for additional ones, you could be awarded those. Another exception is outside scholarships, which you didn't talk about during this session, but if you go online or to other organizations that provide scholarships to college students, that's another way to add on more scholarships. They're not Syracuse scholarships and you don't apply through us, but if you go to another community organization, for example, and they award you a scholarship, you could earn that separate scholarship as well. I see a question in the chat about pre-reads. We don't do any pre-reads. So that question comes up a lot. For those of you who don't know what this is, some schools will do a pre-read process where they essentially review to a light level your application materials and then make recommendations to you about what your likelihood is of being admitted and what you could do to change your application. Syracuse does not have a pre-read process, and we don't do that for Coronat. We want everyone to kind of come in on an even playing field and give the students the same consideration, not give some students additional review and not others. So Syracuse does not have a pre-read process. And I see the question, how can we get a copy of today's recording? If you go to the chat, I'll flag it this time. Recording will be posted here. We have a scholarships website, and I can put a recording of today's session after I've had a chance to kind of go through and crop and edit it. And there'll be at the bottom of that page a video with a recording from today. Christine, I see your question. I believe I read somewhere that if your external scholarships exceed the cost of attendance, Syracuse will not reimburse you the cost of attendance. Is this true? Probably. I'm not sure. That would be a good question for the Office of Financial Aid. Is the estimated cost showing what the net price calculator on Syracuse website typically accurate for offers given? Yes, the estimated cost of attendance is tuition, fees, other expenses associated with college. And then you can get a general estimate what your cost of or what your financial aid package might look like as well. And those tend to be fairly accurate. I don't often get complaints that it was wildly off or that this was unaffordable now based on a difference between the estimate and the final cost as someone's being asked to pay for college. All right. It looks like we got through all the questions that you all have asked me, and we only have a couple of minutes left in our time allotted. So I'm going to use this time just to kind of recap and close the session. Again, if you'd like to join me on Zoom again in the future, you're welcome to do that. Today's session was maybe a little informative, kind of a lot of facts and figures and maybe a little bit stressful. Not all of our information sessions are like that. So coming up, we have some sample classrooms that you can join, Q&As with our current students, general questions and information about the programs, the arts and sciences and Maxwell offers. And I encourage you, if you want to continue learning about Syracuse and again, continue to demonstrate your interest in the university, to sign up and attend some of those other sessions. Again, I know not all of you are able to visit campus, so I try to maintain a really strong list of opportunities for you to join us virtually. And I hope I will see you again on Zoom in the future. The contact information on the screen should be useful to you if you'd like to contact someone in our office, and my contact information is included there as well. And again, if you have final questions about need-based financial aid, your family's income, changes to your family's status or income, and want to know how that might affect financial aid, that question would be directed to the Office of Financial Aid. If you have questions about your academic accomplishments, what scholarships you might be competitive for, what to do to be competitive for those scholarships, when we'll make scholarship decisions, those kind of merit-based academic scholarship questions, those can go to my office at visitas@aspire.edu or to the Central Office of Admissions at orange@aspire.edu. So with that, I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you, Chris, in the background for answering questions in the chat. And I hope to see you again on Zoom in the future. So you're welcome to join me on Zoom anytime, and I'll see you then. Go Orange.